Before we jump into today's video, I am going to show you our office. This is a little throwback back to my Twist Realty days. When I got my license in 2021, I joined Twist Realty, a small local brokerage with a couple of offices founded by Courtney Twist. And Twist has been great to me, and we then made the transition to eXp Realty, and we are now at eXp, but we have access to the office here. So if you ever want a face-to-face meeting, I usually work out of my home office. So I'm not in the office every day, but I'm happy to meet you here in downtown Oakhurst. And we are very centrally located right on Highway 41. And we've got the new Yosemite Buns and Shakes restaurant right next door to us. And they get to see our office and my branding when they drive through the drive-through. But yes, we made the transition to eXp. I was initially part of the Twist Realty group at eXp. Then I made another transition. I started my own team, the Sharp Mountain Homes team, brokered by eXp. eXp is a real estate company that really encourages agents and teams to form their own brand and their own identity. And at Sharp Mountain Homes team, we really focus on the short-term rental, STR, or Airbnb investor. I personally have helped over 40 investors buy in this area, and that's the focus of my YouTube channel, the Yosemite Area STR Investors, where I give you all the information that you need to make an informed decision for a cash flowing, high return on investment property in our area that can pay for itself and grow your generational wealth for years to come. So that's our focus. That's the team. I've got right now 2 members of my team, Kyle Collette, who actually manages over 90 properties here in this area, as well as Wyeth Bothwell, our youngest agent, who in fact just graduated high school last year and has started with great momentum and is doing great. And we are in the process of adding several more young, hungry, hardworking agents to round out the team. So we look forward to serving you. And with that intro, we're going to jump into today's video. What I'd like to focus on today is a couple of properties that I've recently toured. One is on Indian Springs Road in Oakhurst, and the other is on Jean Road East, also in Oakhurst. And what we're going to do is we're going to dive into the numbers. These are both currently operating Airbnb. What does that mean to you as an investor? The good news is startup costs are going to be lower. So basically, in most cases with a good offer, they will include the furnishings, all the accessories and accompaniments in the property. So basically, it'll reduce your startup costs. They've also done a good job in terms of establishing their listing. Now, while the listing itself isn't transferable, of course, everything they've done to make it Airbnb ready is transferable. So that's also a good thing. Now, what's the downside? The downside is that sometimes they've got higher price expectations. So that is driven by a couple things. Number one, they've got a track record, and we can get actual data. So we're not just relying on Airdna to pull comps and project revenue. We can actually see what they've done on Airbnb or VRBO or even with direct booking if they do that. So that's a plus. But because they've got that history and because they've got hard numbers, sometimes they expect to come out a bit higher price. What that can result in is a gross yield. So that's like the top line number that we'll use to evaluate a property from an investment perspective. Gross yield is basically gross revenue divided by purchase price. And that kind of gets you in the ballpark. It's not a precise ROI measurement. We've got to dig deep into the expenses to get to that number. But it's a starting point, and typically investors are looking for a minimum of 15% gross yield but ideally more 20. We typically don't see an existing operating short-term rental at 20% gross yield because the seller understands the value of the property, and if they don't sell, then they're just going to keep making revenue. Maybe there's not as much incentive to sell, which can make it challenging, but we are in the slower season. So investors that would not even consider selling in, say, June, July, August, even September, as we get into October, November, December, they start to get a little more negotiable. We are entering a period of time where that's a possibility. But the other thing is, and we'll talk about this with both of these properties, what we're looking for is opportunities to increase revenue. So that can come from a variety of sources. Number one, we'll dig into the reviews. You might find some things that are just obvious that guests just didn't prefer. We can improve the property, we can fix those problems, and we can start getting better reviews and higher revenue that way. The one on Indian Springs Road is 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms. The other on Jean Road East is 5 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms. So the bigger homes give us an opportunity, in many cases, depending on the layout and the architecture, we can divide that larger home into smaller units, primarily to satisfy the smaller groups that are traveling in the off season. So what we're going to try to do is get our overall occupancy up by capitalizing on the fact that small groups still tend to travel in the off season or the shoulder season, a time when maybe large groups are not gathering and traveling as much. So high season, open up the whole house, book the whole place, get the largest groups with the highest nightly rate in there as possible. You'll still have good occupancy, and that will work fine. But as things slow down, now what you want to do is you want to make sure that you're capturing the entire available market. And a lot of that market is going to be for 3 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, even 1 bedroom or a studio. So is there something in the house that we can do to capture that market and then increase our overall revenue? So we'll look for those opportunities. What we'd like to do is take a home that maybe starts at a 15% gross yield, for example. Can we increase the revenue to get to that 20% where the ROI starts to really make sense? So let's do a deep dive into both of these homes. We'll look at the numbers, we'll look at Airdna, we'll take a look at the real estate listings as well as the listings on Airbnb so you can get an idea for yourself. These are 2 good options. They're on the market now, they're ready to go. So if you're looking in the, we'll call it $700,000 price point, here's 2 options that are both generating more than $100,000 gross revenue today, but have an opportunity for upside to make them even more appealing. So let's take a look at these 2 homes. Sorry for the long introduction. We'll get into the detail now. We've got a lot to look at here, but you can skip past the intro. I just thought it might be nice to get to know each other a little better. Today we're taking a look at a couple of homes. These are a little bit higher price point than some that we look at, but I think it's worth digging into some of the numbers. Generally, my investor clients are looking for something in the give or take $500,000 range. It seems the sweet spot. And again, per the introduction at $500,000 purchase price, then you're looking at something between $75,000 and $100,000 gross, and it is possible at those price points. It might be a little bit more difficult just because there is a trend to more experiential stays and something special, and sometimes at $500,000 it's not that special. So we're going to take a look at a couple of homes today that are a little bit higher price point, call it $700,000. Basically, backing up a little bit, why a vacation rental or a short-term rental here in this area? And essentially it boils down to Yosemite National Park, which is the big draw, about 4 million visitors a year. And most of the guests in our towns here, Oakhurst, Mariposa predominantly, as well as some smaller towns. The guests are here to see Yosemite, so that is the big draw. And we've got, again, some hotels here, not too exciting. We've got some hotels in the park, which tend to be expensive and sometimes a little long in the tooth. A strong, attractive short-term rental here in Oakhurst, in this case, because that's what we're looking at today, is very appealing to a lot of guests. Basically, what are we going to do? So we're going to look at the specific properties, and we're going to go through the real estate listings, look at some of the specs, see the photos, but we're also going to dig into the Airdna numbers, not only for Oakhurst proper, but also the specific addresses and then the listing options that you might have at the two properties. So first one we're going to take a look at is Indian Springs Road, 40584 Indian Springs Road. And again, we'll get into the actual photos of the properties as we take a look at this, but this is just a high-level overview. House doesn't look anything like that. Anyway, it's a 4-bedroom, 3-bath. When we talk about 500,000 range, those tend to be 3-bedroom, 2-bath. So the fact that it's a larger property and can sleep comfortably 10 guests is a draw. At 2,100 square feet, it's not huge for a 4-bedroom, but it's definitely a decent size. You'll see that. And it's on a 2.5-acre lot. It's essentially in town. It's nicely appointed. There are still some opportunities for improvement, which we'll talk about. And it is a current active Airbnb listing. The asking price is $695,000. And as I said in my intro video, typically a full asking price offer will include the furniture. That's not a guarantee. It's like everything else, negotiable. But don't expect to come in well below asking and get the furniture. Those tend to be tied together. And as I indicated also, we're not just relying on Airdna in this case. We can get actual earnings reports from the current owner. Again, almost 3 acres in town, so the location's good in terms of proximity to restaurants and shopping and Highway 41 to get into the park. It's got great architecture. You'll see that from both the photos and the tour, because I will do a short video tour of each property as part of this video as well. And then the second property we're going to take a look at, and again, this is AI generated for dramatic impact, but the theme is consistent with this photo, which is a very nicely integrated hot tub with a beautiful mountain view. And this is asking a little bit higher price, but it's a larger home, 2,700 square feet and 5-bedroom, 3-bath. And in its current configuration will sleep 12. It's also on a larger lot. 10-acre lot. The rule of thumb here for any property that's zoned mountain home, typically that's a 5-acre minimum. So if you see something that's 10 acres, there may be some opportunity, whether it's in Madera County, which is where Oakhurst is, or Mariposa County, there may be an opportunity for subdivision down the line, and you could create 2 parcels and then have up to 2 homes on each parcel that are both short-term rental properties. So that does add some value, although it's not something you're going to necessarily see right up front. So again, we've got a more dramatic hot tub. Both homes have hot tubs, but this is a little more dramatic setting. As I said, better views, big patio with a view, and can accommodate larger groups. Again, Indian Springs a little better value, Jean Road a little more home on larger acreage. So either one's a good option. And like I said, I thought it was important to present a couple of options at a little different price point than typical. We're going to get into seasonality a bit. Our seasons here are heavy in terms of guest occupancy in the summer. We're also going to take a look at how amenities can affect your revenue. And then we're also going to talk about, again, how to do some things in terms of dividing the homes into smaller units to improve occupancy and overall revenue. We'll jump into that now. This is not a comprehensive ROI analysis, but it's high-level directional. And then if you are interested in one of these properties, I'm happy to sit with you and go through this in more detail with hard numbers. Okay, before we get into the specific properties, like I've done in many of my videos, I like to take a look at the market overall. And this is Airdna for Oakhurst. Oakhurst is in Madera County. And you can see these are existing listings that are in our market. This is a big part of our economy. Our economy is certainly driven by tourism, and this will give you an idea of essentially what the opportunity is, but also what is the competition. Right now, submarket score 64. This is actually down a bit from just a video a couple of weeks ago. I think that's primarily driven by the seasonality. And again, 52,000 in revenue is not anything to get super excited about. Average daily rate a little over 300, occupancy rate at 52%, which is, again, maybe a shade low, but again, as I have done in the past, let's first take a look at amenities, because one of the absolute first things you can do with any property is add a hot tub. We just add that hot tub, apply that, and boom, revenue jumps up to almost 74,000. If you want to be successful here, add a hot tub. Both of these homes have hot tubs, so that will factor in. But I also wanted to take a look at seasonality. Let me get rid of this one for just a second and want to take a look at seasonality. Again, this will affect your thinking in terms of how to maximize revenue for these properties. Just have a look at this. June 70, July a little bit less, May a little bit less, and August a little bit less. So June is a high month at 70% occupancy. But what I want you to really take a look at is out in these months. So February is 33%. January is also a shade over 33%. So that's for the market in general. So now, because we've got a couple of properties, let's just go ahead and look at 4 to 5 bedrooms. And in this case, 3 bathrooms. And let's go with 8 to 10 plus. So this is capturing the range that these properties are in, but also kind of looking at that end of the market segment. Not sure if you remember, June was at 70%, now we're at 62%. July was down a little bit from June on the market overall, but at 67% is now the best month for the large property, but the overall occupancy for the large properties is less than the area average. And then when we get out here in February, for example, if you remember, that was 31%, I believe, 26.8%, and January 34%. Basically a fall off in February for large groups. Keep that in mind. Let's just go, in this case, to the extreme. Let's say 0 to 1 bedrooms, and 0 to 1 bedrooms and 1 bath. So 0 to 1 bedroom. So 0 bedrooms is essentially a studio, and then 1 or 2 guests, because small space. We now are looking at June is now 76% occupancy, July at 71%, both of those are higher. May at 73%, also higher. And February is now 39.9%, essentially 40%. January, 40.5%. So what in general for the smallest unit is a much flatter curve. Now, obviously the nightly rate at $152 is not comparable to that $300, but the occupancy is almost 60% over the course of the year. So what does that mean? The long and the short of it is, if you can take your 4 or 5 bedroom home and create 2 or 3 alternative listing configurations, you can now optimize your annual occupancy rate with your daily rate and improve your overall revenue. So just to look at one other option, what if we pick now 0 to 2 bedrooms, 1 bath, and up to 4 guests. So just, again, the midpoint. And again, 60% occupancy. Now we're up to $174 daily rate. So that's the average of studios, 1 bedrooms, and 2 bedrooms. The point being is these smaller units basically deliver a lot of bang for the buck. So the strategy is maximize your nightly rate when occupancy is higher. You can also play with your booking windows. So large groups tend to plan farther ahead, so you can have a longer booking window for your whole house. And then as you get closer and closer to the date, you can start introducing the smaller units because you'd rather have some revenue versus 0 revenue. So a good property manager who knows how to revenue optimize can help you through this. But when we're looking at properties, what we're looking for is opportunities to subdivide. So again, high level, let's go ahead and look at the specific listings. So Indian Springs, we've got this hot tub on the deck with a view. Now this has got a smaller lot, so the neighbors are a little closer. Nice architecture with nice dramatic high ceilings. Also point out, and you'll see this in the video as well, tile counter. Cabinets aren't completely unattractive, but they're a little bit dated. This property is not a premium, fully remodeled property. It's carrying a little bit of baggage from when it was originally built. The bedrooms are nice, the furnishings are nice. I can't remember whether there were king beds in any of these bedrooms. I did notice only queen beds in the next property we're going to take a look at. This is a remodeled bathroom in the downstairs space. I will put the links to these listings so you can browse them a little more carefully. But this is a nice property, 4 bedrooms, 3 baths. It's got a lot of potential, and the price point is a little bit better than Gene Road. But let's go ahead and jump over here to Airdna. And what I've put in here is the address, 4 bedrooms, 3 baths, 10 guests. So that's the configuration that we would be offering for the whole house. Projected revenue of $80,000 a year with 47% occupancy, so a little lower than the area average, but $470 nightly rate. But what's interesting is, again, Airdna does proximate location with comparable properties that are surrounding. And what's interesting is we can actually find our listing. So in fact, it's not 80,000, it's actually 84,000. And then based on opening up the dates that were blocked, this property could generate over 87,000 a year. 87,000 on $700,000 purchase price is not super exciting. Now, the listing agent did tell me that this property was doing 100,000, so we'll look to see those reports. But I think that even without that, if we consider something else, which is, first of all, the configurations that we talked about, 80,000 for 4 bed, 3 bath, 10 guests. So let's just look at 3 bed, 2 bath, and 8 guests. Now we're 66.7, so we only dropped about 14,000, but that would give us a 1 bedroom, 1 bath that we could continue to market again, playing with the different configurations. And in that case, 33.3 thousand. The net effect is we just got $18,000 more revenue. We only dropped 14,000 by going to the 3-bedroom, and we increased 33.3 thousand by adding that other unit. Now, you'd actually do a more sophisticated system than this, again, optimizing for large house, large groups, high ADR during the high season, and then play with your empty dates to offer the different configuration. You'll see from the video that this house lends itself well to having a downstairs suite that is separate from the upstairs. So you'd have the 3-2 upstairs and the 1-1 downstairs. And the one could actually probably accommodate 3 guests, maybe 4 if they're kids. See if that makes a difference. Yeah, no difference. That just gives you an idea of what can be done with the listing configurations. And then we can just jump over here, and this is, I think, probably going to see a lot of the same photos from the real estate listing. But what we're primarily looking at here is, okay, 178 reviews. It got the guest favorite badge, which is certainly important in terms of getting viewed on Airbnb and getting booked on Airbnb. And 4.95 average rating. This is performing well. Just to give you an idea, Airbnb Superhost has to maintain a 4.8 average, so 4.95 is above the curve a bit, and this listing is doing well. Now, I also noticed when we looked at that listing that it's also on Vrbo. Interestingly enough, though, they have a rating of 10, which is the best, but only 2 reviews. I only threw that in there just so that you can get a sense that, yes, you can have your listing on multiple platforms. The big 3 are Airbnb, Vrbo, and Booking.com. Booking.com being particularly popular with European guests. But managing multiple platforms may not be that effective. And again, as you can see, this one, 178 reviews on Airbnb, 2 reviews on Vrbo, probably not worth the bother. Having the smaller listing and the 2 or 3 listing options is actually a much better bang for your buck. But anyway, so since we've done the deep dive on this one, let's go ahead and break away and show you the walking tour. So I walked the outside and the inside of this home on Indian Springs. So we'll take a look at the tour, and then we'll come back and take a look at the house on Jean Road East. Today we're going to check out this listing on Indian Springs. It's an active Airbnb, so you'll see from the furnishings and the appointments, it's turnkey and ready to go. But this is in a good neighborhood and a good sized lot. I believe this is 2.5 acres. It's central to North Oakhurst. Pretty attractive, dark paint. Could use a little bit of touch up there, it looks like. And this rail is a little loose. And you can see they've got some wear on the deck paint there. Anyway, let's take a look outside, and then we'll go in the house and check that out. So this is a wood deck, like I say, with definitely some paint touch-up needed. Feels pretty solid. The outdoor area is not bad, although this table is pretty rough. You can see there is solar throughout. We'll have to check that out in terms of what the financial arrangement is. Is it leased, power purchase agreement, or is it owned? That will definitely make a difference. And then you can see the deck extends out around the back of the house. Looks like a pretty new HVAC system. And even though the neighbors are viewable, pretty private, and we've got some views. Not a great day for enjoying the view, but yeah, it's a nice spot, and I think it's got potential. It's right at 700,000 list price. Let's go ahead and go inside. So this just, like I said, wraps around, and this will come into play later. You see the stairway down. So there is a suite down below that could be potentially rented separately. This is 4 bedrooms, 3 baths, and they make a point in the listing to state that the bedroom bathroom count does not jive with the county records. So I suspect when you see the downstairs, you'll see that it was probably finished without permits. Not as big a deal in Madera County at this time than Mariposa County, but maybe something to consider as well. So we've got a kitchen. The cabinets look nice. Looks like maple cabinets, tile counter, so it's not a high-end kitchen per se, although the appliances look good, and I don't find these too distasteful. We've locked cabinets there, so I don't know if that's for the owner or for the cleaner. Step into the living area, and we've got some nice high ceilings enabled by the architecture that you saw from the outside. Peek in the laundry area here, and they've got 2 washers and 2 dryers, so that's a good setup for the turnovers. Make sure that the timing on that will work. And we've got a finished garage, so it doesn't need sheetrock, but it also hasn't been turned into a game room yet, which is, of course, how we tend to suggest you use that space. Currently, it could be used for parking, but that doesn't really add that much value. Guests do not have to park in a garage, and garages are great for, like I said, game room space. Here's the slider out to the deck that we saw earlier with, again, the views. We step through here, and we've got this nice little office area with some built-in cabinets, high ceiling, and this wraps around to the master suite, which also has access to the deck. The bathroom, as you notice, is, again, in good shape, but tile counters, tiles surround around the sunken bathtub, and tile in the shower. Not high-end updated, but certainly serviceable, and a nice roomy primary suite. So step across here to one of the bedrooms. Bedrooms aren't huge. That looks like a queen bed, but certainly king would fit if you chose to go that route. Here's the shared bath upstairs with, looks like a marble surround, tile floor. We've got, looks like a luxury vinyl plank floor in here. Also looks like a queen bed. And the only odd thing is, I guess, the flooring is a bit mismatched. Doesn't look terrible, but you have to shoot around that in your listing photos. And if we step down into this area, this is, like I said, the area that I believe is probably finished out without permits because it's not on the county records. It's like we've got either a crawl space or a cleaner's closet there. They put a mini split down here because, again, it was probably not included in the HVAC system. But yeah, this is a nice size room with a sitting area, and this door could be replaced with a French door that you could put a smart lock on, and this would make actually quite a nice separate suite. And then we've got the bathroom here, which is shower only. This area is screaming for a tub, which with the plumbing could be added. But yeah, this is a good option. Price point's not bad. Waiting for the earnings reports, but my understanding is it's doing about $100,000 currently gross income. So anyway, that's Indian Springs, and we'll move on to the next one. Okay, welcome back. We are at Jean Road East, and this home is listed for $729,000. I know the listing agent well, and we've had some conversations. I have the revenue reports. I think in 2024, I want to say they did 115,000, something along those lines. House is doing pretty well. Apparently a little bit better than Indian Springs. Again, a lot of bang for the buck, both in terms of how they've laid it out and then some of the configuration options. I'm not going to go through all the photos in detail, but just a few highlights. So again, capturing the view, nicely appointed, not quite as dramatic high ceilings. So it's got high ceilings, but not the angular two-story ceilings of the other home. Also, even maybe a little more dated kitchen. So this is oak cabinets with tile counters. I think both homes could use updated kitchens and bathrooms. So again, it really depends on if you want to take your home to the next level. So just paging through. Now, like I said, I couldn't remember in the previous home, but this home with 5 bedrooms has only queen size beds. Why would you do that? Number one, it is going to help your turnover timing. So if you have the same linens across all your beds, then it makes it easier for the cleaners and they can do the turnovers more efficiently. But honestly, the bedrooms are all good size. If they were going to adopt this strategy, it should have been 5 kings, not 5 queens. But that also represents potential opportunity. King beds on your listing will draw guests. I would encourage maybe over time swapping them out, dealing with the lack of consistency during the transition. But I would certainly think about king beds for this listing. Here we got the view with the hot tub. These are the kind of pictures that are going to help draw the guests in. They see themselves hanging out in this place. This is also the property with the larger lot, 10 acres. So more privacy, better views, not quite as convenient. So this is outside of town a little bit, up a hill, up another hill, not quite as convenient to grocery stores, restaurants, or the park, but maybe more of a destination. So there is a trade-off there. And again, I'll show you this in the video tour so you kind of get a sense. The photos are nice, but video tour really helps you get a sense of the flow in particular. It's hard to grasp that from just looking at the photos. This is the backyard. So they've got a patio back here for outdoor dining and barbecue. But clearly the hero at this house is the front of the house and the view. Speaking of which. Okay, let's just quickly jump over to Airdna. So now I've loaded this one in. So again, what's interesting is at this address, 40903 Jean Road East, a 5-bedroom, 3-bath, 12-guest house should do $86,800 a year. You know, now our ADR is 502. Occupancy is still a little down at 47. But what you notice over here, what are the comps? One of the comps is this actual home. So in reality, this home did 104,000 with the potential to do 109,000 by making those block dates available. And now we're at 63% occupancy. Again, Airdna is synthesizing data and it's all generic. Now they've got the data that they have been able to scrape and pull from other sites, and they're showing the actual house, which is performing better than their projections for a house with those specs. And then you can see occupancy is pretty strong, 93.5% in July. This is a good performing listing, but I do want to point out a couple of things. Number one, if we jump to the actual listing, what do you notice is different than the real estate listing photos? All the interior stuff is the same, but they painted this house. They painted it, they put solar on it, and they still have their old photos in the Airbnb listing. Maybe they didn't think it would matter, but I can't imagine why they would want to spend the money to repaint the house and not put that dramatic gray color on their Airbnb listing. Basically, it's a surprise when the guests show up, but they're not using that new paint job to actually help them book guests. So, a little odd. 4.91, little lower rating than Indian Springs, 143 reviews instead of 178. That could simply be, when were these properties put on the platform? This is how many reviews they have. But again, in Superhost territory and strong from a review standpoint. Now, the thing that is the opportunity here, even though this is doing pretty well on its own, I just want to show you, and again, we'll use these projected revenue numbers, which don't account for the hot tub, and they don't reflect this exact property, but a property at this location with this bedroom, bathroom count, and guest count. Because this 5-bedroom house actually has the opportunity to create 2 suites, I just want to show you the effect, again, at this high level. So keep that number in mind, 86.8. And now we say, what if we create a 1-bedroom, 1-bathroom guest suite for 2 guests only? What can that property do? $31,000 a year. 31,000 times 2. So 62,000, because there's actually one on each end. And then we come back here and say we still have a 3-bedroom, 1-bath house if we have those alternative suite configurations. And let's just say this will only sleep 6 guests. They're sharing a bathroom, so maybe you don't want more than that. But this is almost 70,000 a year. So now we went from 86 to essentially 130,000 a year. That is the difference between renting your house only as a large home for large groups and dealing with the seasonality effects of that, and breaking it down and getting the benefit of those smaller groups. Now, of course, you have to make sure that the parking and the entrances and the signage and the automatic messages are all set up for that. But I just point that out because this is one of the key opportunities when you have a larger home to actually capitalize on that opportunity to split up into smaller homes. So I think that will wrap up our analysis of these 2 properties. I think it gives you a high-level view of what are they all about. I will take a pause here and let you see the Gene Road East video tour, and then that's a wrap. Now we're at Gene Road East, and we are up Gene Road quite a bit. There's a nice view up here. We're going to check out this house. It's 5 bedrooms, which is somewhat rare. And I just thought I'd start down here so that you can see they've built some stairs down to the lower portion of the lot. And big storage tank, looks like 10,000 gallons. And unfortunately, not a great day for the view. You can see they've got the garages finished in terms of sheetrock, EV charger there, but they have not turned this into a game room, but they've got some space inside that they're using for that purpose. So just step around here and you can see the highlight of the property, which is really the hot tub and view. So ordinarily on a clear day, you get a nice view of the surrounding foothills. We've got steps down, as we talked about, and a little picnic area, horseshoe pit that looks to be in disrepair. A solar metal roof. Also a kind of a dark gray paint scheme, which is pretty popular. We're seeing that a lot these days. And this patio area with seating, and again, opportunity to enjoy the view. I see the Starlink dish, so they've got Starlink at the house now. So we'll go ahead and step in. All right, so this is turnover day. So while they're cleaning, they don't make me take off my shoes. Got this dining table, nice large size dining table, and a couple of chairs to, again, enjoy the view out to the patio. So we will just head down the hallway and see what we've got back here in terms of bedrooms. So good size bedroom. Looks like a queen now, but room for a king if you wanted to go that way. And the primary suite with commode, shower, and vanity. So it does have a double vanity, but countertops are a bit dated, tiles a bit dated, and the cabinets don't look like they're in great shape. We've got carpet in this part of the house. That's could be an issue. Surprising that they've got a queen bed in here as well. The back patio, we'll go ahead and step out here and check this out really quickly. Got this interesting rock wall. Would probably pop nicely off the photos. And back dining table with a barbecue. Privacy out back. The posts have also got that rock motif. But unless they are literally using queen beds throughout for ease of turnover, it's an odd choice for that bedroom. And step across the hallway, so we've got the shared bath with the shower tub combo, same cabinets and counters, another bedroom on this side, so another queen bed. So I suspect that was the strategy. Now I think this home at the right price is being sold furnished, but if you were to furnish it, I would suggest king beds, not queens. So there, that's 4 bedrooms on that side. Step into this area, we've got pretty good size living area with a high ceiling, not dramatic vaulted ceiling. And dining area here. Kitchen with the same oak cabinets and tile. And turnover day means laundry, so it looks like we've got stackable washer dryer and probably an extra dryer to speed the turnovers. And this area, which looks like it was part of the garage originally, they've used this as the game room. So you could expand that game room by going into the other garage space as well. And so we saw the 4 bedrooms on the other side of the house, and I suspect this, another bathroom, and bedroom number 5. Okay, so 5 bedrooms, 3 full bathrooms, which is again on the larger side, which is good in terms of the large groups. The question is, could you put a door there and create a separate suite, which seems very possible. That could be a separate suite, and the primary bedroom could be a separate suite. So there are some configuration options that could work to increase your occupancy in the off season. And I don't believe that the current owners are doing any of that. So there is a revenue improvement opportunity there. So again, just to summarize, G Road is a nice home, 5 bedrooms, opportunity for multiple units, hot tub with a view, and not a bad option as a turnkey property.